Afternoon, everybody. I'm Jackson Ratcliffe. I am the Demand Generation Marketing Manager at Centerbase, and I wanted to welcome you all to the Property and Property Division webinar with Family Law Software, a Centerbase company. Manage and grow your firm through a single platform with Centerbase. From your first website visit to the final bill, we power your firm every step of the way. Centerbase is a cloud-based law firm management and growth platform company with product suites including firm management, firm operations, client operations, practice area support, which you all know with Family Law Software, and firm growth with LegalFit, offering websites and digital marketing strategies. We are currently running a great promotion for Family Law Software customers, and we actually have one of our legal digital marketing experts with us today, Patrick. Would you like to give maybe a quick highlight of LegalFit's capabilities while we're waiting on everyone to join?
Yeah, thank you, Jackson. And thank you, Anna and Nancy, for letting me take a couple minutes at the top here just to run through this. So as Jackson mentioned, LegalFit is a part of the Centerbase suite of companies, which also, of course, includes Family Law Software here. And what we do is a little bit different than Family Law Software or Centerbase. We provide websites and digital marketing strategies specifically to law firms. And what really makes us unique is we are experts in really kind of diving into what your goals are in terms of generating new clients, bringing new potential clients in, or maybe expanding into a new practice area, maybe that you don't currently advertise on your website, and bring in those types of cases that are very specific to that practice area. And with our websites, we really focus on building trust, which is super important in the family law space. We know folks are often at a pretty low point in their life when they're looking for an attorney for a custody case or a divorce case. So we really want to lead with empathy, create you as, a human being that can be trusted, but also a subject matter expert in your practice area as well. And the way that we build our websites, really at the foundation, we are focusing on SEO best practices. So as you may or may not know, Google is constantly updating what they recommend in terms of building your website and really reprioritizing different things in their algorithm on how likely they are to recommend your website when someone's searching for a custody case or divorce case, whatever it might be. So we stay on top of that for you. We're constantly making adjustments and staying in tune with what Google expects a good website to look like and function like. More importantly, we also keep your business information updated across all online directories. It sounds minor, but I can tell you, a lot of the law firms that I look up before meeting with them have different contact info, different info in different places. And it's really difficult to stay on top of making sure all of that is consistent across the entire internet. So we take that off your plate and we'll really manage that for you. You don't have to go in if you add on a new associate or let's say move offices or change phone numbers. All of that will be automatically updated across all online directories that you're shown in. And just a little bit more about what this means specifically for family law, which you all do. So at the foundation of it, like I mentioned, we do want to make sure we're following those SEO best practices, make sure Google feels very comfortable recommending your website when someone has a question or is looking for a service. We want to make sure it's ADA compliant. So those that are differently abled are really easily able to digest and understand your website. And really, it's also mobile friendly. So what that means is when someone's on their phone, they're having a great experience as if they were on their computer and can easily find your information, contact you, whatever it might be. The next step up from that is really important for family law, your local presence. So that's kind of what I was talking about in terms of your business information management. We want to make sure across all of those online directories, Google Maps, Google Businesses, you're a verified business, you're a trusted partner of Google. All of that will be handled by us. Also very important for family law is showing your expertise. And we do that a couple of different ways. My biggest one for family law is your content strategy. So that's going to be your practice areas, doing a deep dive to make sure Google is indexing specifically what you do and feels comfortable recommending you. But also things like ongoing blog content. So when someone asks a very generic question, you're going to show up there at the top of the answers in terms of answering that question or addressing, whatever specific question that they had. All that kind of ladders up into driving more people to your website, and ultimately, hopefully getting you more qualified leads and people that you want to work for. A couple of things, like a couple of cherries on top here that we add on at the end. would be the client experience. So clients making retainer payments directly through the website, consultation fee payments directly through the website, and even providing basic client intake in terms of what they're looking for, what their situation is, and getting that delivered to you really quickly. Most of what I've covered so far is focused on sort of like a longer term content strategy. I'm not necessarily suggesting we flood you with new potential clients and really overwhelm you if you're already busy. That's more in the paid leads, which is the top right here. Local service ads and pay-per-click are great if you want to kind of dump gasoline on the fire and bring in a ton of potential clients really quickly. But everything before that, in terms of the content, in terms of SEO best practices, is really going to be more focused on long-term sustainable growth, not just dumping a whole bunch of new people right onto your lap. And then lastly, a little bit about what makes us different than your niece or nephew who currently built your website, or a local agency that you might be working with, or maybe you're even managing your website on your own. As I've mentioned a couple of times, we're really purpose-built for law firms, solo and small law firms specifically. And what that leads to is having a ton of expertise around what is actually moving the needle in getting you the right types of clients, or even more potential clients coming in that door. And we want to back this up. We never want to say, you're going to double your leads or whatever, and you just have to take our word for it, right? So you do get some real-time data tracking where you can go in at any time and see how many visitors have I received last month? How does that compare to, the month before, this month, whatever that might be. We really want to make sure that you're seeing the ROI. And as part of that, we only offer month-to-month subscriptions. So we're not locking you into a 3-year deal where, regardless of the results, you're kind of stuck with us. We want to be proving out month over month that, hey, this is a good investment. We're bringing in the right types of people for you. You're growing your business by X amount. And all of that is just built into our reporting. Now, on my part, I really like to do existing website audits. So there's going to be a survey at the end of today's presentation where you can actually say that you're interested in learning a little bit more about Legal Fit. And our first step will be actually to go into your existing website and see how it's doing. We can work through that together in terms of the metrics and what areas of opportunity there might be. So that takes about 10 minutes. And then the last 5 minutes, we'll dig into my recommendations based on those things in terms of what I think will move the needle, how we can help, what realistic expectations are for the new website, and all of that fun stuff as well. So if you are interested or looking to revamp your website in the next couple of months, please just, during that survey, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll be in touch and we can schedule some time to run through that. Perfect. Thank you again to Anna and Nancy for letting me hop on here. I'll pass it over to them.
Thank you so much, Anna. Why don't you get us started with the substance of today's webinar? Thanks everybody for tuning in today.
All right, awesome. So again, it's super exciting that Family Law Software can offer all of these new services. But today we're going to focus on Family Law Software. In particular, today's webinar is on property. So we're going to go over property data entry, some new features that we have with data entry, and then we're also going to do some skills. And so for those of you who do not recognize my voice right now, hello. I am Anna Tate. I am an attorney based out of Orlando, Florida. And with me today is attorney Nancy Schaefer. She will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, please pop them in. And then Nancy will take over the skills set at the end of today's webinar. Everyone is going to learn something new today. I promise you that. So if you've been using Family Law Software, you're one of our 20-year customers, don't worry, you're going to learn something new. And if you're new to Family Law Software, don't worry, you're going to definitely learn something new. So what are we looking at right now? This is Family Law Software Cloud. And what I'm showing here is I am in the property section. So I am in assets and liabilities. So on the left side of the cloud is where we have our full menu. If you are a desktop user, you have the same stuff in the same order. It just looks a little different, okay? And so just to orient you all, I am in the data entry section. assets and liabilities. And I happen to have my program set to the state of Florida. Don't let that trip you up too much. So if you're in Ohio or New Jersey, you'll see the words Ohio or New Jersey, and things will look very similar, okay? And so anytime that you are getting ready to do analysis in family law software, it's vital that you're entering all of the data in this section. And it might be titled a little differently in your state as well, because we try to be state specific when we collect that data. And today we're going to focus on this section here, which is assets and liabilities. And I'm in the cloud, so I'm going to close this little menu here just so I get a little bit more space on the main screen. Why is property data entry so important? It's so important because we need to know all of the assets and liabilities in the case. We need to know their value. We're eventually going to be dividing that property, obviously in a dissolution case. And then more importantly, a lot of assets have income streams attached to them, or debts have payments that are obviously attached to them. And that definitely affects how property division is going to work out. It's easier to assign the debt to the person whose title is or name is on the debt versus having to deal with fund, credit card, and debt issues along the way. So we want clean breakups if we can. And so what happens in our asset and liability section? We're going to spend a little bit of time up here, and a lot of users just scroll through this. What do I mean by that? You come here, you're busy, you need to enter the house, and you scroll down here and you start looking for your real estate and the cars and the boats and all that stuff. But before we do that, I want to spend a little bit of time up here. Why? We've done some changes. So if you've been with us for a while, we tested something that didn't work well with our users, which was a toggle that was called forms mode versus plans mode. And the idea behind that was paralegals have one task and financial advisors and planners have another task. And so we created a toggle. What we've done now is we've removed that toggle, and we have options that you can add or take out of your data entry now. And so everyone is going to see these options, okay? And so they're all great options, but it just depends on your role and what the case calls for. So the default will be this. What is this? This is going to have the official fields of your state. So if your state has a formal financial statement that is filed in the courthouse, and there's a standard format for that, we'll call that official. And we're mixing planning fields. Planning fields are income streams and titles. So things that affect the case and affect the property, but are not necessarily a part of your state's financial affidavit. They're not required disclosures as a part of that financial statement, but they're very important for the financial health of the parties before and after the case, okay? And so which one do you choose? If you are a paralegal or you're an attorney and all you want to do is build your state's financial affidavit, you can do that just fine. And so in Florida, I'll just show you what that looks like. So if I click this option, what you're going to see here is all of these are listed in the order of that state's affidavit. And when I open up, we'll say cash. So I'm going to say that this is like, I don't know, a Bank of America, super typical checking account. And here's the value. And what you'll see is if you choose this, you're basically just building your state's financial affidavit. And so whatever your state asks for, whatever fund check boxes they have, that's what we're going to ask for. But if you're a financial planner or you're an attorney and you're looking ahead, there's a lot of stuff hidden in this green box. So they can always be accessed in this green box. So this is more information. But rather than use this green box, I'm going to scroll back up. These are all options that you can add to your data entry. So just by clicking this, meaning I'm doing an official with my planning fields, I'm going to scroll down again, don't get dizzy. The data is different. Now we're asking for title, affidavit, we're asking for income. Green box is still important because there might be things that you want to add that are deeper, and the green box helps you do that. Don't worry, we're going to click on the green box, the mystery green box. We're going to get there. The last thing that I want to mention, because it's big, let's scroll back up because this section is so important. And I bet you've glossed over it a bunch of times. So the last thing I want to talk about up here are these fields, okay? Your state may not have a checkbox for marital versus non-marital property. And then the valuation date is obviously super important, but a lot of our state's financial affidavits don't even ask for the valuation date. And so that kind of puts family law software in a strange position. Why? These are extremely important, but your state affidavit may gloss over that issue. So I'm going to scroll back down and you're going to see these new fields here. Again, I'm set to Florida, but this is going to look very similar in any state. So I'm in assets and I'm still in cash. I still have my Bank of America checking account. And now what you're seeing is there's a valuation date button. Separate property only of Taylor, separate property only of Blake. So if you've got a lot of stuff that you got to enter, some is marital, some is non-marital. Lord forbid it's mixed, because then the green box, you got to get in there. That's what we're talking about. We're trying to make data entry as easy and seamless as possible. So however your brain works, look at these options and do them. Okay, know that there's lots of options. And if you ever have any questions, reach out to us. We promise at Family Law Software, we're always trying to improve. And if we miss the mark, let us know, because we do keep track of the good things that we're doing and the things that you guys want to improve. So every time you email us and say, I don't like this, we figure out if other people have said the same thing and we try to improve. Okay, let's talk about the valuation date. Valuation date is critical. When did this balance come to be? Okay. And so I don't know I don't know when your client gave it to you. I don't know when they pulled it. Maybe they, missing some numbers, 112023. Maybe on the data filing, they screenshotted all their bank accounts and they went on Zillow and they screenshotted everything. I don't know. Hope maybe not. And so the valuation date is really important. If your state affidavit does not ask for valuation date, this date is only going to be on Family Law Software reports. So any reports that Family Law Software makes, this valuation date is there or is an option. But this valuation date, if your state affidavit has no place for it, our hands are tied. We're not going to put it in there. But Anna, we need it. It's important. The judge cares. Great. This description box is actually pretty long. And so you could type in the value date here, okay, in the description field. So use this as it needs to be used. Understand the limitation of this date, because we try to follow what your state does within a certain box the best we can. And these are footnotes, okay? So if you want to put the value date in the footnote, maybe that works better, maybe it doesn't, or an explanation. So the footnotes are critical. So this blue box is everywhere. So that's just some of that. We're laying a foundation here. And if this has ever bugged you or you wondered what's going on, that's why. At any time, you can go print. So if I were to open up my menu here and I click print, I can see exactly how this looks. So before you get in too deep, if you're new to Family Law Software, click around, add some data, go print. Does it look good? Great. If something is missing, come back here and start clicking around and getting those options. But that's a big one, the value date. And then marking property as separate, meaning non-marital, okay? The value, you have no idea. The other party has the information. You're representing the non-money spouse. You're kind of starting an uphill battle. You just don't know. There's text fields. So anytime that you click a field that asks for a monetary value, you are actually able to hit this pound or hashtag. And these are all non-numerical values to be determined, you know, hubby, wife, they're withholding, okay? Whatever that is. So if I do like a TBD and I click OK, we got a TBD. TBD, done. So now this no longer has a dollar value. You're just going to see TBD everywhere on your affidavit. You're going to see TBD on your property statements. You're going to see TBD. If you like it, great. If you don't, come back. Value disputes. Those are always fun. You think it's worth $80,000. They think it's worth $1 million. that's obviously extreme, especially with real estate. What do we do about that? We have a tool for that, okay? And so if you are a basic user, you're going to get lost pretty quickly because all of this functionality is going to be in the full version. So we are in assets and liabilities now, and we have a value dispute for this account. How do I keep track of that? I go into analysis, and these are all of my property division tools. But did you ever see the word more? Click it. We got a lot more in family law software. So click more. You see the word more everywhere. So in property division more, we have a valuation worksheet. What do I mean by that? If you click property valuation and you scroll here, so this is that Bank of America account that we had together, and $80,000 is the value that we've attributed to it. This column is what we're doing, or what the judge told us to do. Okay. It's a really clean sheet. You can add stuff that you forgot. And the big one is you can keep track of what does Taylor think it's worth versus Blake. And I have a sample file open. So at any point, if you wanted to open up the sample file and see Taylor and Blake's breakdown of their financial relationship, you can open that, follow along, or play with it later. And so property, that's the big one. Like I said, Taylor took a screenshot on Zillow of the house on the date that she decided to file, New Year's resolution. That was the day. And then obviously Blake says something else. Blake's like, absolutely not. We'd be lucky if we could sell it for 220. I talked to a realtor. I talked to a bunch of realtors. And then the date that I did that was, recently, because if we try to sell it now, this is that fun number that we're going to get. But you'll notice that the value to use has not changed. This matches our asset and liability statement. And so should you want to update it, you can here. Okay. And that hashtag pound, if you've never noticed it before, anytime that there's a number to be entered, you're going to see that you can actually do a non-numerical field.
And you can autofill one or both of the columns with the data that's already in the program if you click the options link.
Correct. And again, Nancy points it out great. I ignored this. I just kind of scrolled through it. At the top of family law software, see, I do it too. Click for options. There's so many options. It's so funny because a user will reach out and say, it'd be really great if you did this. And we'll say, you know what, we kind of do. So those hyperlinks at the top, I didn't listen, Nancy, to my own advice. So at the top, look for that. I'm going to use, you can use the back browser, or you can go back up through your menu. That's another question that we had gotten. So the back browser, if you use the back browser, don't worry, it's all saved. Okay. So if I change this value and I use my back browser to go back to where I was, family law software is constantly saving. It's lightning fast, and you move on with your life. Okay. So it's super fast. Don't worry about it. Change the values, use the menu, use the back, refresh, do all those things in your browser that you need to do. All right, so we are back to the Bank of America checking, and something that you may not have noticed before. Let's say you've got 20 bank accounts and you need to reorder them, okay? So here's my cash or whatever the category is, and you see the number 1, meaning I only have one item there. And so I can rearrange if I have multiple accounts, multiple pieces of real estate, you want to use this and you want to reorder, okay? Let's say that this is a high yield savings account, okay? And there's annual income, there's interest. They're making, I don't know, some of these rates are pretty good online. If you haven't checked out some of these Fidelity accounts, high yield savings, online accounts, check them out. They have annual income. I pop that in there. I deal with all of it together, okay? And so then you move on. New feature alert. So if you are a diehard family law software fan and none of this is new to you, you always pay attention to the options. You already know what these bubbles say before you get there. New feature alert. So in family law software, you're not going to be limited, okay? So in these categories that are assets, we have a new feature, and we are now handling restricted stock options, okay, and stock options. It's a feature that was released quietly about a month ago. And in any of these asset investment categories, cash, checking, etc. So your state might have a stocks and bond, or yours might just say investments. What's going to happen now? We're going to go back to the cash on hand just so I can show you. We're staying with this example for now. And let's just add. Okay. And I'm going to say TechCo RSU versus stock options. They are different. I'm putting them on this line for the same demonstrative purposes, but know that they are obviously different. And so what does family law software do that is new? Okay. So if you have a case with RSUs or stock options, who has cases like this? Lots of people. These are benefits that employers are now putting in compensation plans for lots of different reasons. Maybe your client is a younger person, but they have these in their compensation plans because small companies want to be big companies and they offer these types of benefits for growth. Or you have an older client and they are at that director, manager, GM, all those that fun level, and the RSUs have a lot of value. So stock options and RSUs can have zero value. They can be extremely valuable. And now in family law software, we have a way to address that. How? Green box. We're clicking the green box. If I click the green box now in any of these investment accounts, so we don't limit where you can do this. So wherever it makes sense for your property statement or your financial statement for the court, wherever it makes sense, we're not going to limit you. And what you're going to see new is this. We are asking, is it an RSU or is it a stock option? Okay, so first let's click on the RSU and we're going to go to the table. And the big thing with RSUs is all about the dates. The dates are super important. So what's the cutoff date? I don't know. So some states are super clear. When you file the date of the petition, that's the cutoff date. We use the term cutoff date because we want you to determine what that date would be, either from state statute or from a fairness perspective. Who do these RSUs belong to? I'm just going to pick that first party. What's the value per share? I don't know, say 50 bucks. The date that it was valued, I don't know. I'm just making up these dates. And then we're going to add the grant. Okay. Perfect. And so again, the dates are important. Why? Let's say that they've been married a little bit longer. Okay. And then we'll say that the grant date, like make it dramatic, like it was like the year before the wedding. That's date. Number of units. Perfect. So once you enter in all of these yellow fields, they're all important. Then these blue fields are going to populate on their own. Okay. Why are the dates important? Because of the coverture. We're trying to figure out what's marital, what's non-marital, what's the value. And so all of this is ready to go for you. Okay. So if you have those clients and you have to do this, there's a super easy way to do it now in family law software. So in the past, we had a very long FAQ workaround, and now it is programmed into the software. So hopefully you guys have some fun with this. Check it out. And then if I use my back button for my browser, I can come up here. And if instead it's unvested stock options, and I would click for the stock option table, they're very different, but the dates are very important. Strike price, all those fun terms, you're going to see those here in that table. More importantly, though, is that after you've done this, and I go back into assets and liabilities, and I have my tech co, that value is now here. Okay. So after I've gone deeper, I've gone into the green box, we figured out the value. This number is blue. Remember, in family law software, blue fields are calculated fields, yellow fields. So these are yellow fields. These are drop downs. So make sure that you're using the fields accordingly. And the blue field is coming from the calculation from the green box. Nancy, let me know if there's any questions that you wanted to address live on that new tool.
Yeah,
If not,
just to clarify, you are using cash on hand for this. These would not be cash on hand. They would be in the appropriate
Correct.
category.
100%. So, just in case anybody missed that point, is that we are not limiting this tool. You would not, if this is not where you would normally put it. So in Florida, I'd probably put it in this folder, but we don't limit where the tool is. The tool will be located in all of these categories, or in your investment checking savings category. So 100%. If anybody got stuck on why I was up here, I apologize. I just did it up there, but you could put it anywhere. So, and I can just demonstrate that. So for instance, if I go into stocks and bonds and I add here, and then I say RSU, and then I click the green box again, you're going to see those same options. So it makes more sense to put it there. You're going to see those options there. So I apologize if that seemed like a mistake. I was just kind of staying in the same section, but know that it is there. Yes. Okay, awesome. One thing that I want to touch on before we start talking about real property is going to be retirement. Okay. Oh, I want to pop in here because I feel like every once in a while we have attorneys that are starting to dip their toes into gray divorces, and then they start having some questions about these retirement plans. And the green box is a big one. Okay. So when you're entering your retirement plans here, this description is what you've typed in. So if I'd like to distinguish that it's an IRA 401k, I could do that here. Pretty important. And so once you enter all of this data, remember we talked about family law software is not just about this number, the value. Family law software goes so much deeper into these cases. And so let's say that this is Taylor's and she's going to keep it. So this wealth has accumulated. Let's say it was more, or they have multiple accounts. They haven't done the rollover yet. Sometimes we see that there will be multiple accounts in this section, and that's fine. But the big one is know that the program is asking a lot of questions throughout. How old is this person? The age. You might say, well, that doesn't appear on my state financial affidavit. Why is that important? Let's click this green box. And I just wanted to touch on required minimum distributions. Okay. And so if you've diligently been entering information, whose account is this? IRA, 401k, you make your way through here. If you're a lawyer and you have not done this, please check this out. It's actually really important. If you're doing gray divorces, it's extremely important. Why? I'm going to keep on scrolling. There's a lot here. Oh, sorry. Is it? No, sorry. Here. This section. So not only have I put in that there is a retirement account, happens to be a 401k, and I put in the date of birth. Let's make it abundantly clear. I'm going to say she was born in 1940. Required minimum distributions. So just by having a 401k, by putting in the date of birth of the owner here, this section is really important. You're required, the IRS says you are required, age 72, 73, depending on your date of birth, that you are required to take distributions. And so a question that we've had from attorneys sometimes is they're like, hey, I'm doing this great divorce. They've got all these assets. And then when I look at their financial cash flow, there's all this money here. And I'm like, where's it coming from? They're like, I didn't enter these numbers in there. And it's because family law software is calculating the distributions that they are, air quotes, required to take. Required might mean something differently to you or your client. That's fine. But family law software is going to do those calculations. If you've had questions about that or need to modify that, you would come here, okay? And so it's triggered by the asset, the date of birth, how, when, how much are they taking? And then if I scroll down, it'll show me the annual distributions for Taylor, okay? This is Taylor's account. We still ask for Blake's contributions, even though they're obviously not making them. We just can't make Blake disappear. And so these dollars are being attributed to Taylor because she has to take that money based off of her age. But there could be other factors that she doesn't have to take that money or she's taking more. All right. I really want to talk about real estate, and I really want Nancy to show you some cool stuff that we've added into the program. So if you feel like we've glossed over some really important topics, let us know because we'd be happy to do some follow-up webinars. But I really want to talk about real estate. Real estate.
Okay. And Anna, I have answered a bunch of questions in the Q&A. If you have questions, please put them in there. We obviously can't address every single thing in this webinar. So if you need to reach out to us afterwards, you probably know how to reach us, but you can always do support@familylawsoftware.com to ask your questions.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Nancy. We've got a really great group today. I see the questions. I see the chat. So again, if you ever need to reach out to us, it's support@familylawsoftware.com. This is intended to be a really great overview. And so let's jump into real estate. I'm going to pop this open. We have one piece of property, okay? For everyone, okay? Family Law Software handles each piece of real estate like it's its own bucket, okay? And so rather than asking, you know, how much is the total expenses for all of the properties, we just assume that you're going to enter a piece of real estate. So I've got the lake view, maybe this is the homestead, I don't know. And then I could add a second piece of property, and that's the beach condo, the lakefront, whatever it is. And so multiple properties. Why? All of this is important because family law software is calculating not only the cash flow, not only the asset section, not only the debt section, but we're also calculating the taxes, excuse me, the deductible mortgage interest, excuse me, okay? So you can see this field is blue. So if I were to say that they had instead a 7% mortgage, you know, whew, making me sweat, then we see that this blue field changed, okay? One of the biggest questions we get at Family Law Software, I would say the number one question we get related to Family Law Software is, why are my numbers different than opposing counsel, the mediator, the judge? And it's an excellent question. Family Law Software is so detailed that these are the types of things that we're doing. We're balancing the standard deduction versus the itemized deduction. We're calculating the AMT tax, all of these tax credits. So if you have a paternity case and the other side lists the 3 properties that one of the parents has, so it's a paternity case, there's no property division, but you have ignored the fact that one of the parents owns a business, has multiple pieces of property. Well, guess what? Your taxes are going to be different than theirs, and your child support numbers are likely going to be different in many states, okay? And so that's one of the answers I have. Why are my numbers different? Did you put everything in the same way? Are you using quality software? If those answers are no, then you got to do some updates. Okay. Most common questions that we get with real estate. This property is going to be sold. Okay. What are we going to do about that? Great question. Green box. Green box is really important with real estate. Why? We've got all of these other folders that could affect real estate. Okay. If you didn't know, we have a basis and sale. Okay. So hopefully Nancy gets a chance to show you the after-tax property division and a little bit of the property division. But if you didn't know, you can mark the property as going to be sold and you pop in the anticipated sale date. So we're going to say it's going to sell soon. Okay. And then we think about like, what is this going to cost? You know, the realtors are maybe a little more affordable now. I don't know. Hopefully the lawyers can pick up the slack on on making some money off real estate transactions. So with that being said, there's a basis and sale folder. Is it going to be sold? Yes. There's a full analysis on that. You know, what do you think it's going to sell for? What was the original cost? So the basis. If you want to use our after-tax tools, we need to know the basis. Okay. And then what's really, really cool is there will be a tax worksheet here. And this report will show how much your clients can expect to take home at the end of the day. So maybe you've got a really great realtor involved and they're going to run those numbers, or maybe you want to run these numbers before they sell it to give your clients reasonable expectations on how much they're going to take home from that piece of property. Okay. So if you didn't know this was there, it's great for multiple reasons, because the basis will help calculate any tax consequences, and then letting us know that it's going to be sold and when is going to create this awesome report. And you just click PDF to finalize that report, okay? And then I just clicked assets and liabilities, and I'm back to Lakeview Lane, okay? Again, the green box, super important. Footnoting, lots of footnotes, a lot of question mark helps. Another question that we get a lot, and I feel like we were able to address it a little bit more in detail. We did a webinar that is on our YouTube channel titled Business Income, and we talked about this as well, because we dive into the business side more deeply. So you definitely want to check that out. What am I talking about? Investment property, okay? If your clients own multiple pieces of real estate, we get this question very frequently. The question is, how do I enter into family law software? How? Okay. If your clients personally own the real estate, they have not created an LLC, there's no business or entity formation to hold that property, it just goes in the real estate section. Okay. Property 1, add property 2, add property 3. Okay. So there's no question there. The hiccup happens if your client owns multiple pieces of real estate and each one of them is held in their separate Gold Star LLC, and they are dealing with the income, expenses, etc., through the LLC, then the answer is very different. Okay. Then it's a business. Okay. But the problem that we have as attorneys and professionals is there tends to be two very different sections on your state affidavit where real estate is located versus where businesses are located. And I get it. Some users like to see real estate in real estate. Okay, so that's fine. But the problem is that if your clients have created, LLC for, house 2, 3, whatever. I've seen cases where we get into double digits with these houses. The problem is that you really want family law software to do the taxes appropriately. And so that cash flow, the income, the expenses, all of that stuff is really going to be happening through the business, and you really want to deal with it through the business. That's going to be the gold star because of the tax issue. And so you would want to pop that information here, the entity formation, the drop downs, all of this. So if you haven't checked out that business webinar, please check it out. Know that is there a right way? Is there a wrong way? I don't know. Every case is so different, but remember, it's all about the taxes, the cash flow and the taxes, and getting that right. You don't want to inflate or deflate someone's income. And so again, why are my numbers different? If one attorney handled it this way, because maybe they just have more information, and you handled it a different way, you're going to come out to very different results. And then there is that green box. So please check out that webinar. If this is like a hot topic where you guys are just like buzzing to learn more, that's the taste. The business webinar goes into a lot more details about that. And then Nancy, I am almost ready to pass this over to you. Are there any questions that we wanted to address live? Because Nancy's coming in, we're going to do some skills demos.
All right, I've been answering all the questions. So let's go switch the screens here to my family law software sample file. And we're going to talk about taxes, my favorite subject. So we're going to play in the analysis section here. And when we're talking about property, we have a bunch of cool tools. When you're looking at dividing the assets, we have the division of marital property worksheet. And this will give you a running total as you move things around. And you can see here that there's 319,000 of unallocated asset. So I selected the bar chart so I can see the unallocated. So my first pass, I'm going to go through and make sure that I have allocated everything. Oh, here's a pension that is not allocated, and I apologize, I played around with this. So California people know what a CalPERS pension is. The rest of you just think pension. So this is in a defined benefits section. It's not applied yet, but let's go ahead and make that a 50-50 division. And when I do that, it's going to automatically change the allocation. If I changed it to another division, it would change the numbers and the allocation. And as I'm doing that, it's automatically moving that asset from unallocated to allocated. And here we go. We've got the total running. So now I say, well, this is a 54-45, 55-45 split. How far are they from 50-50? So I can, with one check box, say this is how far they are from 50-50, and it'll automatically give me the number. But what if I want a 55-45 split? So if I say 55 to Taylor, it'll automatically tell me what more Taylor needs here to get to that 55%. So I don't have to do any math in my head on a piece of paper, on a calculator. The program does it for you. What if I don't care about the total allocation, but I do want to split the retirements evenly or in some other way than the other assets? So I can change this to show the allocation by what we call asset class, non-retirement, retirement, and debt, for us to be able to look at how that estate is being divided. We can look at different side-by-side property scenarios, who gets what. But here is where then I want to take you to property division on an after-tax basis. So what this report and worksheet is doing is it's looking at two different tax potential aspects. The first is marginal tax rate at retirement. What does that mean? That means what is the top tax rate or the tax rate of the last dollars in for the retirement account when it's going to be paid out. So the whole idea of retirement is you are deferring paying the taxes until retirement, when your income theoretically is less than your peak earning years, and therefore you end up paying less taxes overall, right? We all understand that. So what I'm looking at there is what assumptions, what I think when I look at that, I go, well, what assumptions are going into this marginal tax rate at retirement? So I could look at the explain link, which would give me a explanation of what the program is doing. And this will also tell you what you might have to go back in and adjust if you haven't in your assumptions. Okay. And then, whoops, sorry, I just went to the wrong report. And now the other thing is when we are looking at the detailed explanation of both of these, I'll show you that in a minute. The second tax consequence is the capital gains. Now, for capital gains, we're looking as if the property was going to be liquidated now and the tax paid now. Capital gains rates do change under current tax law based on the income of the party claiming the gain. So you will see here, for example, that for Taylor, the capital gains rate is 3.80 federally and 18.80 federally for Blake. So Taylor is got less income. She's at a lower capital gains tax rate. And this is also going to require assumptions. And again, if we go into the explanation, it will tell you what the assumptions are being used for that purpose. Obviously, for capital gains to be calculated properly, we need to know basis. And we may or may not always know that. Our clients are generally not very good at getting us that information. Even our financial planner people tell me that their clients do the same. They don't have that information. And then the detailed explanation is going to include both of those things and really give you the nerdy explanation of all of that for each asset, okay, that we're taxing. So if you ever want to know how the program is coming up with these numbers, look at the explanations. And so then we can see that certain of the assets are going to have capital gains. And in my sample file, I made the value very high so that we could have some gains even on the real estate. That's the primary residence. But you'll see the tax rates are different for each party, so that if they had a pension that's worth 100,000 present value and we're dividing it, Taylor's going to pay 14.95%. Blake is going to pay almost 30%. And their net result will be different because of those tax rates. And that's really the purpose of this report. It'll give you a total of what each party's getting. And that same total will show up here at number 3, which gives you an overall view of the whole marital estate with that after tax. Okay. Now let's go back into, for a moment, the data on the house that Anna was showing us. Go into the real estate. Hello. My program is sleeping. Come on. There we go. And I'm going to go into my more info screen. And if you remember, when we looked at basis and sale, Anna showed you this report, the sale of real estate report. And this report is also in your reports section. Now, we also here have a worksheet to determine whether there's capital gains tax or whether the amount is excluded. So when we're talking about the primary residence, the technical term is tax exclusion for the property. And I can go to this worksheet and it will ask me a bunch of questions to calculate the exclusion. First, is the reason for the sale primarily because of the divorce? That can help if you don't have the right residence for each of the parties. If you live for 2 of the last 5 years, and we have a whole explanation of all those exceptions for those who don't remember all that lovely tax stuff, you just know there's a problem or an issue. And then we talk about the rollover gain, if they owned and lived there, and what is available for the exclusion. And then it will tell me, because this was a $1.2 million house with a low basis, what that taxable gain would be after exclusion for each of the parties. And then again, we can go to the report for the sale of real estate. So there's lots of ways to get to different reports here, but all of this would, now this obviously only applies to the principal residence, primary residence, for the tax exclusion. And we even tell you that at the top. Okay. Now we have another really cool new report. A lot of us are faced with the question from our clients, probably even before we know how much income they have, what their expenses are, and a million other questions. They want to know, can I keep the house? I want to keep the house. So we now have a report, can I keep the home? And this will tell you whether there's enough positive cash flow for Taylor if you've asked it about Taylor, or you can do the same for the other party by changing who's going to get the house. And you can go out as many years as you want, up to 50. And it will show you in 5-year tranches what that result would be. And you can see in the first year, no, there's not enough cash flow. But, oh, look at that. Cash flow improves enough that there is enough net cash flow for Taylor to keep the home after the first year. And so as you change the data, of course, this result will change. And it's a nice way to help your clients understand what goes into that decision and whether it makes sense for them to perhaps add expenses or add income. So you could add other income, you can subtract other expenses or add other expenses to see if, in fact, they can afford to keep the house. So if I added a second job here for $15,000 a year, is that going to give us enough money for Taylor to keep the house? And the answer is still no, because she's 98,000 in the red. So if I made this 100,000 of more income, let's be realistic, then whoops, yeah, she's still got a net cash flow because there's taxes. So we'll just keep going until we see what the amount is going to be, and we're getting closer. So let's make it 175. And then, yes, now we've got her with enough money. So you can see how this is a dynamic worksheet. You can play around with it. You can go back and change your original data entries, or you can just add income or subtract expenses to make it work. Okay. And I hope that y'all will find this report very helpful in the appropriate situation, of course. One other tax scenario you want to look at here is in the property after tax. Now, I don't have those stock options that Anna put in her file, but if I did, I could go to one of these accounts and or add an account that has those RSUs or stock options, and it's going to also tax those at the capital gains for the eventual sale, but also as appropriate, it will tax it as income because RSUs are taxed as income when they are vested. Stock options are taxed as income or capital gains, depending on how long they're held and so on. So all of that is appropriately handled in our tax engine. And we are just about, oh, you want to show the other spouse keeping the home? I can do that very easily. I'm going to go into enter data. I'm going to go back to my assets. I'm going to go back to the house, and I'm going to go to more info. And on the division of marital property section, right here, whoops, division of marital property. Let me try that again. I touched it instead of, here we go. I can change who's going to get the home. We'll say not Taylor. It'll automatically be 100% Blake. And now when I go back to, can I keep the home? It's going to tell me whether Blake can afford to keep the home. Okay. So that is our time for today. Please, if you're interested in the legal fit, fill out the survey and let us know what topics you want us to address next. We'll probably take a couple months off and then start again in the fall. Okay. And the recording will be on our YouTube channel in about a week or less. Thank you all.